Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Aquarian Mind podcast. Today's podcast, episode number 252. I'm your host, Jamel Crothers. It's Author Insight Friday. It's not Book Insight Friday because I'm not doing a book today, but next week will be the discussion, of Alphabet City Part 5. So just giving you guys a heads up of what's coming next week. But today, I want to talk about the challenges I face as an author, part 2. And I'm going to go through 3 things that I deal with and face, when going through this journey of, writing books, publishing, all that good stuff. So, first thing is bringing emotion and imagery to my stories. There's a lot that goes into writing characters. And for me, it's about, making sure that characters are relatable and, they emote and give you a sense of empathy in a way, because I do write about social issues and there's a lot that, goes into it. It depends on what I'm writing about. If I'm, writing about alcohol addiction, there's that element of what they're struggling with mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all of that, right? If I'm talking about domestic violence, and not even just on, the women's side of women dealing with domestic violence, because it's more prevalent and shown on the women's side. Believe it or not, a lot of men deal with domestic violence. It's just not publicized or not like shown in the media as much. I did write a book, The Man Who Lost His Soul, and that deals with, domestic violence on the men's side, right? So there's got to be the element of what a man is feeling and going through in a relationship where he's being abused physically, spiritually, emotionally, and all of those factors that go into it. And on top of that, I added more juice to the story that he has 2 children and they feel the wrath of, his wife / the mother of these children. So there's a lot of things that I have to do in regards to writing a story and making sure that you feel what these characters are going through and creating a scene where you can visualize this happening in your mind. So it's a lot that I have to, make sure that it comes out the way I want it. Now, I write my books all in one shot. Now, during the editing and proofreading process, I may add some stuff to it to bring out the story more, or I may even delete some stuff that just doesn't sound right, or I kind of talked about it, in another chapter, and, I'm kind of rehashing it again where I don't need to have that there, right? So that's, the challenge on an everyday basis when I get to that point where I'm writing books for those few months. Yeah, it's a lot. All right, so next part, relatable characters, which I kind of briefly spoke about 2 minutes ago. When I write characters like in The World We Live In, or, the Kids with Guns series, there's a lot of characters involved. There's over 20 plus characters in like those book series. So somewhere along the lines, I want you as the reader to gravitate toward 1 or 2 characters where it's like, oh, I can relate to that person, or, oh, this person kind of thinks like me a little bit. So, those are challenges, that, I face with making sure that characters are relatable and they're believable also. So I'm writing about social issues, but it's based on real life situations that do happen, or, things that could potentially happen, the world in ruins. So there is a lot to that, with making sure that when you read my book, it's like, okay, I can relate to that character. Living life to the fullest, Timothy and Rachel, those people are down in the dumps and, don't really have a purpose in life, and they're told the day they're going to die, right? So imagine you find out the day you're going to die, right? That's, that place where everyone's like, oh my God, I got to start living my life to the fullest. You see how that works? So everything has a message and a purpose, behind, what I'm writing. So those characters are relatable, and they may not relate to everyone, but they relate to a certain percentage of people who are feeling the way they feel about life, right? And that was the reason why I went about writing that book. Okay, so the last thing is keeping books engaging and not overwriting. Man, this is tough. And I say this because a lot of people, like, when they find out, I'm an author, I'm a writer, all that stuff, and we get through the whole introductory stuff and what I write about, things like that, okay? Like, that's not always the fun stuff that I want to talk about. A lot of the things that I want to talk about, it's like, hey, like, look, I write about these things. A lot of my books aren't ridiculously long. And the reason why is because I don't want to overwrite a book. And a lot of times I will cover certain aspects of a social issue, but I already know that I'm going to cover other aspects of it in another book down the road. So I don't want to, put too much information to it. I want to give the message and make sure that you're receiving it, and that I can write other stuff down the road and you're able to receive that too. So it's why I try to keep my books within like that 70 to 80 page range. There are books that are over 100 pages. I think my longest book might be 150 pages, 150 to 160, give or take. And I think that's like the world we live in, either part 1 or part 3. But that's because I'm writing about 19 different characters, right? So there's a reason why those books are longer. That book series is very long. I think that's about close to 700 pages in 5 books. So, those books I'm not going to overwrite. But when I'm writing about like the Men's Plight series, and, I'm writing on the Women's Worth series, and I'm covering different, subject matter, I'm making sure that I'm covering the subject matter, and I'm making sure the characters are relatable, they're telling their story, and they're getting to the point. I don't like books that drag. I know a lot of readers don't like books that drag, so I'm not that person. I try my best to pack a punch early on within like that first chapter, or at least within the first 2, to draw you in, keep your attention, and make sure that it, is engaging, and it's, something that you can soak in, and you can also possibly learn, something from it. So, my books aren't for everyone. Certain subject matter is very sensitive to certain people. So I don't expect everyone to read every single book, right? So there's certain subject matter where it's like, okay, you can read One Drink Too Many, which focuses on drunk driving. You can read Living Life to the Fullest, and know like you need to really live your life, to the best of your ability. And that's the goal, right? Police corruption, police brutality. Code Blue may not relate to everyone. That may be too sensitive for certain people. They may have dealt with something like that in their life, so maybe that's something that they don't read, right? But gun control in America, that's something, it's like, oh, well, let's read Kids with Guns, right? So it's about writing different subject matter and keeping it, honest and engaging. And I know that I have read books where they have been overwritten. I'm currently reading a book that is overwritten. I would say you can probably cut out about 15 to 20 pages, but I'm still going to get through it. I'm still going to read. And I'm at that place now where I'm reading that chapter where it's like, yeah, I really don't need to read all this. Like, I don't. And I'm not going to skip over it, but I'm going to read it just to soak in and get the message. But I really don't need to read that, right? So that's what that is. So just wanted to, kind of give you guys a nice little rundown of the challenges that I face as an author. None of this is easy. I guess I make it look easy, but it's not. There's a lot that I deal with and go through and manage. There will be one more podcast on this journey of challenges I face as an author. So part 3 will be coming in, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, give or take. And next week, like I said, Alphabet City 5. So with that said, that's my podcast for today. I thank you guys for listening as always. Website is theaquarianmindpodcast.com. And I'm also on all major platforms, 20 different platforms, give or take. The main 3, Spotify, Apple, Google. I'm also on Deezer, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Good Pods, GVO Savan, whatever you want to listen to my podcast on, chances are I'm there. Castbox also. So have a good weekend, everyone. Be good, everyone, and go accomplish your goals.